Wait, I'm not ready. Let me check. Yeah, that's much better. For this video, I want to talk about what it was like for me growing up with 14 siblings. One of the first questions I get is, were you raised Catholic or Mormon or Amish or whatever? No, we were raised Mormon, actually. I think the youngest one was born 2006 when I was a senior in high school. Why did I think to talk about this? Well, number one, it's kind of like a it's like a rare thing, especially in America. I mean, the Middle East, like I would have Saudi friends with maybe 8 or 9 siblings, but there, I mean, it's super cheap to have like help. So they usually would have like a couple of nannies or maids or whatever. And it's just a whole different ball game there. But anyway, same mom and dad, 15 kids. My mom got married when she was 19. My dad was 23 at the time. As far as I know, they're still together. So yeah, I'm not super close with my parents. Unfortunately, like I've kind of been disowned, but that's like a story for another video. Why did I think to talk about it? Well, a couple months ago almost, I started dating somebody who was an only child. And on the first, like on the phone call, I guess, yeah, the first date, I don't know if that was even a date, it was a phone call. I asked, do you have any siblings? You know, because I feel like that's maybe a way to try to get to know somebody. It's like, oh, if you come from a big family, or if you're an only child, you know, things like that. And he kind of told me he was hesitant to say that he's an only child. He's like, yeah, I try not to like volunteer that information too early. And I was like, what do you mean? And, you know, because there are stereotypes, obviously, like this only child syndrome. The kid is like spoiled, antisocial, and bossy, and entitled, and that kind of thing. I mean, some of my closest friends are only children, and they're not like that at all. And by the same token, I usually hesitate to say that I have 14 siblings because people would think like, okay, I'm weird, I'm like in a cult, I'm like super, I don't even know. And even as a kid, like I would lie, like in school, I didn't want people to know. Like I didn't want the attention from it, and I didn't want to be judged for who I'm related to. Okay, so there are a few articles online, and here's one of them. It's actually about dating somebody who's an only child, and I read it because I was like, like, you know, are they really that different? And the weird thing that I noticed when I was reading this article is that actually a lot of these apply to me. You know, it's saying, oh, dating an only child is different, blah, blah. Okay, number one, an only child is independent, who's also not afraid to be alone. Okay, yeah, and the weird thing is, like, I'm actually very independent. Part of it was because I think we were raised kind of like Lord of the Flies. I mean, it's like very competitive. There was a lot of like tattling and backstabbing, and I could never really feel like, it's like you're always looking over your shoulder, right? Like, you know, I think privacy, one of the things I really value these days is privacy. I actually broke up with a guy once, like years ago, because he opened some mail that had my name on it, which is a felony, I think. It's illegal anyway, but it's just like, I really value my privacy as an adult. Ever since I was 18, like since I moved out, like I always had my own room, as far as I can remember. Like when I went to college, I was in a suite, but I had my own room. You know, because I had to share a room until I was 16. And so, you know, having my own things and having my things that are just for me, it was super important. It still is very important. And it's not that I'm selfish, like I love to share, but I need my own space. You know, like I need to kind of be able to have my own, like control my own environment, because I couldn't as a kid. Number 4, they want a big family. No, my friends who are only children don't. Like she doesn't have any kids. My close one I'm thinking of right now. Yeah, I don't think so. Like I have some people who are like, they have one sibling and they'll want a big family, but I mean, I'm 32, I've never had a kid. If I were to have kids, maybe I'd have like 1 or 2, but like max, you know, like it's just not, you know, I want to be able to give my kids the attention that I never got as a kid. And I think that, you know, yeah, it's just like you shouldn't have them if you can't give them the attention they deserve and they need. And also if you can't afford it. Okay, they do seek attention when they're around you. And that's one thing I noticed about myself too, is that because I'm the 6th of 15, like I think I didn't get enough attention, and so as an adult, like I like to get attention. I mean, I'm filming and I'm always like on social media, like, and you know, I was acting in Arabic series. When I was studying Arabic, I loved having a private teacher because it was like somebody who was paying attention to me that I could impress, and that, you know, if I worked hard on myself, they would notice. And that's what I loved. It's kind of like gratification of like, okay, you do see me, somebody sees me, and what I'm doing matters to them. You know, I think that definitely affected me. Another thing I read about only children is like they'll have this like drive to succeed because they didn't feel like they're the only child, so they have to make their parents proud, like all the pressure's on them. Ironically, I think I feel the same way, or at least I did. Now, not so much, but as a kid, because my mom is a bit like borderline narcissistic, it's like we were an extension of her, and so the worst thing would be like to give her a bad reputation or to do something that would reflect badly on her. And so, you know, growing up, like if I would get all A's and one B, my mom would be like, well, why'd you get the B? Like, why, you know, who's the smartest one in your class is something she would ask when I was in elementary school. And if it wasn't me, she'd be like, why not? And then, you know, I ended up going to GT, like gifted and talented, in 5th and 6th grade. And I was in like, you know, the advanced math class, even though math was never really my thing. I was valedictorian, you know, Wharton, early decision. That said, I'm really, really happy that I did kind of rebel in the sense that, you know, most of my older siblings went to BYU, the Mormon university. And for me, I really didn't want to go to a Mormon university. It wasn't for me. Like, I just wasn't super into the religion. I couldn't say that, obviously, but really wasn't into the religion. And I wanted to go to a school, you know, somewhere that would, you know, kind of have a good reputation and like help me get a future, because I didn't see myself as like, you know, doing the Mormon mission and getting married, right, you know, when I'm 22 and having kids and all that. Like, I wanted to have a career. It's always been something that was important to me. I made it a point to like, I went to LBW before, like the summer before senior year. I got into that program, and then I applied early decision, and then I went to Wharton. And although I discovered about myself, like around sophomore year, like I really don't want to be a banker, I don't want to be an actuary. It was only recently that I decided to go into journalism, even though I'd worked in media for several years, and I hosted a talk show. I finally decided to formally study journalism only recently. Now the questions, how come Penn never sent me anything like this? All right, so the last thing that kind of bugged me about this article is it says that like the only child problem in relationships. And one of the things is they always want their own space. They want to be spoiled. Yeah, it says they want to be spoiled. I mean, everybody wants to be spoiled, especially by somebody who's important to them. Like, I'd want to treat my partner well, and I would expect to be treated well by them. So in summary, I think don't read too much into this whole, like, whether or not they have siblings, how many siblings they have, because I mean, looking at me, people would never in a million years expect, like, I have 14 siblings, I was raised Mormon, like, I mean, look what I'm wearing, you know, so immodest. Like, they would never expect, you know, the things that I've been through, and that'll, I mean, there are things I'll talk about in other videos, too, about growing up with 14 siblings. I'm not super close to a lot of my siblings, I think you can tell by that, and I'm not gonna, like, badmouth about anybody in particular or whatever. We're not close, but, you know, at the same time, like, I do wish them all the best. We're all very independent, and, you know, I have nothing but love for them. And I don't judge them. Those who are still Mormon, I respect that, whatever, you know, I do my thing, I do me, you do you. Strangely enough, I seem to fit a lot of the characteristics they put down for only children. I don't know if that's just a function of the way I was raised or what, but I think it's because I didn't have a lot of my own space growing up, is that, you know, as an adult, I really value that. I value my privacy, I value my solitude a lot. And so, you know, for me to want to hang out with somebody, it's like, I mean, I do have close friends who are like my siblings now. It's like I've adopted my own family, right? But it's like, they have to be good, you know, good people who care about you and don't judge you and support you, just like any good friend would. Like to keep people around me who are positive, and, you know, somebody who's worth like sacrificing your solitude for. You know, it's like I don't hang out with somebody just to hang out. I have 14 siblings, but in some ways, I do feel entitled. Like, not entitled in a way that's like, oh, I should get this, blah, 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 you know, but it's more like, case in point, I got a lot of financial aid to go to Penn, right? Because Penn's not cheap. When I went to Wharton, it was like $50K a year. And I got a lot of financial aid because of my family size. The expected family contribution for me, I think, was like $2,500 or $3,000. And my parents paid a little bit, maybe like $1,000 a semester or $2,000 a semester or something like that. That was like their contribution. Just so that, you know, you can never say I didn't help you, you know, you can never say I didn't pay anything for your college, that kind of thing. Yeah, Penn's not cheap. And there were kids, you know, kids I went to school with, their parents paid all 4 years up front. And I remember there was like this luncheon or some event where a lot of the donors would come, and you could meet the donor who made your education possible. And I don't know if something about like me being in my late teens, early 20s, I was just kind of in a different mindset. I was like, what? I told them I couldn't even make the event. I had an excuse, I have to work or whatever, because I didn't want to be seen as one of those kids who needed help. Like, I was very entitled in that sense. It wasn't until my late 20s, I think, that I really started to feel more comfortable about where I come from and who I am. Well, I started to, I guess, figure out really who I am, you know, because I kind of grew up in this whole like Mormon, you know, big family, no privacy type of thing. And then I think, and also like the, you know, from, you know, the passive aggression from my mom and this whole like weird upbringing, the whole judginess and things like that. It took a while to get out of that and to kind of like learn about the bigger picture. You know, I lived abroad for 7 years. I think therapy helped a lot. It wasn't until my late 20s that I felt comfortable saying, yeah, I have 14 siblings. You know, before that I wouldn't tell anybody. Like I wanted to fit in, like I wanted to be popular, I wanted to be liked, and I thought like if they know who I really am, they wouldn't like me. I think it always depends on, you know, how you were raised, what your parents were like. I mean, sure, there are only children who are super spoiled, and there are only children who are super down to earth and normal, just like there are kids from big families who are spoiled. Ask my Arab friends, you know? I think the biggest takeaway is just, yeah, get to know people for who they are. Being an only child or having a certain number of siblings or whatever doesn't really mean anything to me anymore. Anyway, hope you guys like this video. Let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. Love you guys. Habkum. See you next time.